All right, breaking down one of my favorite techniques out there today, and that'd be jerkbait fishing. There's no feeling like having one load up on your jerkbait, and that's kind of what I'm going to give you a little rundown on today. A few of my thought processes on it: how to make more fish bite, how to get more reaction bites when the fish don't want to bite, when to work it hard, when not to work it hard, how to make your bait have a little more action in it. So gonna dive right into it. Gonna go over these little topics I just mentioned, try to help you guys out a little bit when it comes to jerkbait fishing. You guys stay tuned, should be a good one. All right, so a few things that's helped me over the past few years, getting a few more bites on a jerkbait, would be the way you work it. I would say that's probably the most important thing when it comes to throwing a jerkbait. The harder you pop it, the more bites you're gonna get. And that's something that I've kind of figured out. I will give my buddy Emil a shout out for that. My Emil Wagner's a heck of a fisherman. He's up from Lake Lanier. He actually taught me and my buddy Christian how to throw a jerkbait more than I was thinking how to throw it. I always just threw it out there and popped it regular, and let me tell you, he works the crap out of it. And that's something I've kind of started to do as well, and I've definitely seen an increase on the amount of bites I get. I've always kind of played around with that, but never really fully just did that 100% of the time. But now that's pretty much all I do. Depending on what time of year it is though, that might change a little bit. I'm going to give you a little demonstration here in a little bit on the front of the boat on how I like to work it. But a few other things that I have learned that'll help you get more bites on a jerkbait is a line size. So when you throw in a jerkbait, if you're throwing it on 18, 20 pound line, that jerkbait is not going to get that much action. Now if you have that jerkbait on 10, 12 pound line, 12 is usually as much as I'll go, that bait is going to have more action. That line diameter is going to be smaller in the water, so it gives that bait more room to go side to side, up and down, whatever it does. That's something to keep in mind as well. Hook size, that's also another thing that's really important. You don't want too big of hooks on a jerkbait. That just takes up a lot of room, a lot of water, believe it or not, and that causes that bait not to be able to get the full action out of it that's possible. And so keep that in mind. The size line you have on there, the size hooks, how hard you work it. Like I said, that's probably the most important thing, how hard you work that jerkbait. And also the rod size. Rod size is very, very important. If you have too big a rod, it's about near impossible to work that bait how you need to work it. If you're working that bait and you have a 7.3, a 7.4, 7.5 rod, that's okay. It depends on the action of that rod though. If you have too big a rod, not a good action, it's just going to wear you down. You're not going to be wanting to throw a jerkbait after 10 minutes of throwing it. You're going to be done. So it's very important to have a good rod in your hand, a good comfortable rod. For me, I don't have it on deck right now. I left all my rods at the house. This is the one I have in the boat, so this is what I rigged it up on. But a 6.8 Pro Series, my favorite, is my favorite jerkbait rod. Very light, very durable, great rod, no problems. Hardly ever lose any fish on it. You guys should check them out. Use my code FD20 if you want to get you one. I'd greatly appreciate it, and it'll help you catch a few more fish. I'm going to give you guys a little rundown here right now of how I like to work the bait, and I hope this helps you out. Alright guys, so I'm going to give you a little rundown on how I like to work the jerkbait. We're going to start off, I'm going to kind of show you how I like to work it if it's summertime, if it's fall. I pretty much like to work it the same way all times of year unless it's really cold. Now pay attention really closely to how I like to work this jerkbait. It'll help you get a few more bites. Watch this. First thing you want to do, you want to throw it out there kind of far. I like to reel down a couple times just so to get that bait down there. So I'll go ahead and reel down. And the harder you pop it, the better. And when I pop it, I have slack in my line. That way that bait can go more side to side. If I have straight tension in that line, that bait's not gonna, you can't do much with that bait. But if you have more slack in it, that bait can go all over the place. It's more sporadic. It'll get you a few more bites, and those fish will react a little better. So the farther cast you make, you reel down a few times and get that bait down there a little deeper, and the more slack you have in your line, the more action that bait will have. Give it about a 2 or 3 second pause. Keep it going. Now if you're live scoping and you have fish behind your bait, that might vary. You can kind of tell how those fish are wanting to react from your live scope if you're watching that. If those fish are all over it and they're not eating it, work it faster. That means they're seeing your bait too good if they're not eating it. Or they're just really smart, which a lot of fish are on live scope. They're not easy to catch. So just kind of keep that in mind. If the fish are not eating it and you're watching them on live scope, work it faster. Don't do many pauses, if any pauses. Now, if it's cold out, if it's really cold and you're working your bait and like, God, why am I not getting many bites? Those fish might be lethargic. If the water temp's really cold, you might need to slow it down a little bit. So this is kind of how I like to work it when it's cold and the fish aren't biting really well. So throw it out there like I said. Reel down a few times, get that bait down there. Pop, 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 really hard like I said, but let that joker sit. Let it sit for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds sometimes. Depends on where you're at. If it's really cold, really clear, let that bait sit. And then start working it again. Let it sit. You know, just a lot of times when you go back to work it, that's when those fish will be on there. So go to work it, pop, 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 let it sit. Those fish are sitting there and looking at it. And when they're really cold, that's when they'll just come up and grab it. And when you're working it, and when it's really cold and you're working it like that, those fish aren't really going to want to chase. So they feel like their best chance to eat that bait is when it's just sitting there. When it's really cold, that bait kind of makes it feel like the bait's dying off, so the fish have more of a chance to eat that bait. So that's a lot of times when they're going to eat it when it's cold. So kind of keep that in mind. That's really the only two ways I like to work it. But like I said, keep this in mind as well. When you throw it out there, like I said, reel it down a few times. But the harder you pop that bait with slack in it, the more action that bait's going to get. I can't preach that enough. That's probably the most important thing that I've learned with jerkbait fishing. I used to pop it like this right here. I would go, that doesn't really do anything. I'm just barely popping it. And that bait's just doing like this right here. It's not really doing much. But the more I pop that bait with slack in it, the harder I can do it, the more that bait's going like that. It's going to get you more bites. The fish aren't going to be able to see your bait as good. And at the end of the day, you're definitely going to get 5, 6, 10 more bites doing that. So kind of keep that in mind when it comes to jerkbait fishing. I hope that helps you guys out a little bit. If you have any questions, comment below. If you could, please like and subscribe to me. That would be really appreciated. Tell your buddies about my channel. And also just tell me what you guys would like to see. What else you think could help you guys out. Any fun stuff, any fun videos. I'd love to make it happen. So I appreciate the support. Look forward to the next one.